All right, so very simple to make a focaccia. You just need a few simple ingredients that you for sure have in your pantry and just a little bit of time just to get this rising properly. So what you would need is instant activated dry yeast. You'll need salt, olive oil, flour. Now the whole debacle of what type of flour to use, don't break your head. You can make this in so many different ways. People say you need bread flour, regular flour, this type of white flour. Honestly, today in my recipe, I'm just using a basic all-purpose flour, keeping this super relatable. You can obviously use bread flour. It becomes delicious with that. But if all you have is all-purpose flour, it is okay. We will show you how the all-purpose flour focaccia comes together, okay? And then you'll need water, a large bowl, a wooden spoon.
Yeah, a strong one.
And that's it. So basically putting this together is you're going to be adding your salt, olive oil, and your yeast into lukewarm water. Now careful that you don't want this to be hot because you're going to kill your yeast. So we're wanting the yeast to bloom in the water with the salt and olive oil. We're going to give it a little whisk and we're going to cover it with a plate to keep the heat and to let that sit for 5 minutes, and we'll show you just how the yeast looks after it's bloomed. And what we're going to be doing is adding our flour to a big bowl and incorporating the liquid into the flour and then slowly mixing that together to form our dough. So without further ado, let's bring them in on a closer look how to make focaccia. All right, so a few minutes have passed in the mixture that we did with the liquid, then we let it rest. We gave it a last whisk, and then what we did to a large bowl, we added our flour, and then we added the liquid slowly into the flour, moving it around, or not really whisking it, but we're just incorporating the liquid into the flour. And then you can do it fully with the wooden spoon. If you want to go in with your hands, but you will see that this becomes a very wet and sticky dough.
It's a very sticky and stretchy.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. You want a wet and sticky dough. This is a high hydration dough. You don't want this to be a very more on the floury side, because that will not get for a good rise of your focaccia, and it will end up being more on the dense, flat, low side. We want a high rise focaccia, so that's why we're looking for a higher hydration.
Adding more flour, it's just going to weigh it down. You don't want that.
Exactly. So you want this to bubble while it rises, and we do our stretch and folds. So you see that I put the initial amount of water. As always, ingredients, directions, measurements always found in the video description, but I ended up adding a bit at a time more water if you see it's needed, because you're really going for the type of look. We zoomed in and we showed you that wet tacky look. That is exactly what we're going for. Then we covered it with some plastic wrap, a tea towel, leave it in a warm spot in your, or room temperature warm spot in your home. And we're gonna let this rest for the first half hour. And then we're gonna be doing about 4 intervals of stretch and folds. And a stretch and fold is basically wetting your hands, taking the dough from one side and bringing it to the center, dough from one side to the center, and the other 2 ways. So give it the time that it needs to build that high focaccia that we all love in the pastry shops. We will come back in half an hour and show you the first set of stretch and folds. All right, so we're at our second set of stretch and fold. So we're gonna be doing this 4 times with half an hour in between each. So the first time I did a stretch and fold, I ended up doing 2 times worth, because I just wanted to create a little bit more structure in the middle. But now, if you come in a little bit closer here, you see that it ends up doubling in size. So this is going to start to bubble and rise as it goes along. See the bubbles that are starting to take place here? That is exactly what we are looking for. Now this will just continue to grow. So with those bubbles starting to form, it's showing that we are getting to exactly what we need to. We are creating those air pockets. As we fold, those air pockets are going to be growing with the dough. So when we end up baking the focaccia and cutting into it, you will have big, beautiful, nice air pockets. And this focaccia will be light and fluffy, perfect for making sandwiches too. But this is why a high hydration and the time of folding in between makes for the best dough. So we're going to be going in with another stretch and fold, always wetting our hands in between, because this is a very sticky dough. I'm going to take it, lift it up, fold it over. Wet my hand again, go from under, lift it up, fold it over. Lift it up, jiggle, fold it over. Go from under, lift up, and over. We're going to cover this again with plastic wrap. Cover it again with a tea towel. And then this is going to be resting again, and we have 2 more sets of stretch and folds, but very easy to do while you're doing other stuff around the house. See you at the next stretch and fold. All right, so the last stretch and fold has been done. So what we're gonna do is to a pan, and you wanna make sure that you have at least a pan that's 2 inches, because this is gonna rise. So if you have a small pan, it's not gonna give a good rise. So this is the best that we found for now, which is totally fine. Glass, aluminum, totally fine. You just wanna make sure that you generously grease this with olive oil, which I've already done, but I'm just showing you for the purpose. And you want to make sure that you're greasing all the way up around to the edges, because this is going to do one last rise in the pan, and you don't want it to get stuck, because the oil greased all around is going to aid for the last rise of the dough, because if you don't grease this all the way up, the dough won't rise, it'll get stuck, and it's gonna lay flat. Focaccia drinks a lot of olive oil, a lot, but do not be stingy on that, because this is what makes it delicious. So you have here the dough, which stuck a little bit to the plastic, but that's okay. So if you want to get in on a closer look, you see the jiggle, the bubbles. You see here all the bubbles? So this did half hour. So at this point, if you want, you can cover it and keep it in the fridge overnight to continue to develop that yeast type of fermented dough flavor that a true classic focaccia has. But if not, and if you're looking for a quick focaccia, it's at this point that we're gonna transfer it to the greased pan. We're going to then grease it a little bit more with olive oil on top. We're not gonna stretch it out at all yet. We're gonna cover it and let it do a last rest for an hour. Remember, every time we're stretching and folding, the gluten's being worked. So you want this, before you go ahead and shape it and do those bubble presses, to have its last rest, okay? So this is fully greased. We're just gonna be taking this and dumping it in. Perfect, look at that. And we're just going to drizzle it with more olive oil. I'm just gonna brush it over gently. Give this a last rest. And then we're gonna do our press and fold. You don't wanna manipulate this too much. You just wanna basically give it its new home and let it kind of stretch itself out ease into it. You don't want to break any air bubbles. Those are the beautiful pockets that we will be loving to slice into after. But look at that. It's the perfect size pan. Perfect size pan. So we're gonna go ahead and take this pan. So we're gonna grease the pan a little bit. So during this last rise, if it does come in contact with this pan, it will not stick. You can put saran wrap again, but at this point I'm just using a cookie sheet. There you go. Put it over. And this is gonna rest in a warm spot for a last hour before doing the beautiful dough press, bubbly, and garnishing it before baking. See you in 1 hour. Take a closer look, come closer. Oh, it's a beauty.
It's gorgeous. Like Mama Nana would say, Benediga Grish. We always made the sign of the cross to make things rise.
Good. At least we're gonna nail this one.
My God, it looks like a cloud. Look at that.
I'm pretty good at it.
Look at that bubble.
When
in
I
the
take
corner.
my time, I'm good. And this is fast. When I ferment it and it does the next day, man, does it hit the flavor. And then I push in my olives. So good.
Oh, we had so many olives. We could have put it. But okay.
It's okay. This will be a plain one.
Do you usually burst the bubbles or you leave them?
No, I like to leave them.
Oh, you leave them?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's airy, and that's the whole like focaccia love. People like to see it. You want to overdo it there?
You almost drench it in olive oil.
You do, and when it bakes, you're gonna see it comes out dry. And
I
you
know.
have to do a last drizzle before you serve.
It absorbs
Yeah.
it. It's beautiful. Has a wonderful flavor. Looks gorgeous, Nance. There we go. So now, what do we do?
Now we are gonna bake this in the oven. Want to be sure that it cooks all the way through the center because it's a high dough, so that's why it's more on the 40 minutes or so. And just keep checking in every now and then. If you greased your pan well enough, it should release to a beautiful focaccia. See you soon. And there we have it. Easy, simple focaccia that anybody can do. Just make sure that you grease your pan very well, and worst case, line it with parchment paper so it's an easy lift and pull.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Let it cool on a wire rack, and you get, you hear that? The perfect crunch of air bubbles. So delicious. What do you say we give it a try?
Of course.
Here's your piece.
Oh my god, you hear that crunchiness?
Mm-hmm.
Even pulling it apart.
If you're a bread lover, this is basically what it is. It's pizza bread. It's pizza bread that is tripled in size.
That's right.
Absolutely delicious. You can put any type of topping. Sun-dried tomatoes, sliced olives, even red onions. A lot of people do different types of ways. We showed you the basic: garlic, rosemary, oregano, sea salt. Now we had fine sea salt, but when you get the bigger rock sea salt, visually looks nice, but also for a good bite, it ends up giving that little bit of saltiness. So I just sprinkled, you saw me sprinkle a little bit of fine sea salt with the oregano and the rosemary, and an extra drizzle of olive oil, because when this cooks, this soaks it up. So letting it cool on a wire rack, slicing yourself some pieces, and enjoy an easy focaccia recipe from our house to yours. Anything else you want to tell them before we finish this piece of pizza?
I'm just eyeing
Nothing
it.
else, fine. All right, thanks for tuning in.
It's delicious on its own. You can slice it in half, like lengthwise, and make it like into a panino. Put the cold cuts and arugula salad. Delicious.
So that was very easy steps to follow. Hope you guys give it a try. Let us know in the comments down below. And as always, weekly content uploaded every Sunday. And if we have nothing else to say before we finish this piece of focaccia, we wish you guys a happy Sunday. And as always,
Continue to love what you eat.
love what you eat. Bye for now.
Ciao.